Recorded on the cloud. Here we go.
One or two thoughts. Mike, you've been talking for a couple hours. This really bothers me, or that really bothers me, or I don't think I can do this. That one makes me really uncomfortable. Good, let's think about that. Because what makes you most uncomfortable that you accomplish is what makes you most successful at what you do. The next point on this list is probably the most important, and it's probably something I could probably repeat to you 1,000 times. I need to consider removing my ego from this process, comma. I need to consider removing my ego from this process, comma. The comma now, what comes next is the big one. I need to consider removing my ego from this process, comma, and use the scripts. Period. And use the scripts. And I don't care if you don't like my scripts, and I don't care if they make you uncomfortable, and I don't. So the numbers tell us what management, leadership, your coach, whoever that may be, needs to know about what you have to learn to become more effective. It's a big job. Those steps that I just went through with you, it's a lot of work. But the action workshop is called Action Workshop. It's not called No Action Workshop. It's not called Occasional Action Workshop. It's not called If I Ever Decide to Take Action, This is a Workshop. Action Workshop. You're going to do some things you don't like that make you extremely uncomfortable. So I want to read a paragraph to you, and I want you to listen carefully. And then we're going to look at some thoughts. So I'll start by saying to you, let's draw a line across your yellow scratch pad if you're taking notes. And let's write in capital letters 2 words, setting appointments. 2 words, setting appointments. Because our job is to set appointments. That's what our job is. Now, at the break, one of you sent me an email, a question. It was a fun question. I want to answer it for you right now. Because now we're, getting close to a couple hours into our first day. So this question is fair. Mike, how different is it doing the 2-day action workshop virtually versus live? And I didn't answer you. So first of all, thank you for sending the question to me at the break. I got it right here on my iPad. I didn't answer because it takes a while to answer that question. Because the truth is, it is a completely different program. Ron Cronin, Ira, Larry, John Joseph, Tony, all of our great speakers, I've had to have this discussion with them about what we're doing today. Because, they're all great speakers and they're used to doing live presentations. Well, this is 100% a different program. So it's totally different. But the ability to have versatility is what makes you great. And the one thing that our 5 speakers and myself have to have is versatility. So let me share with you the difference, okay? This is really an interesting point for you to think about. So we have a 9 o'clock seminar that goes until 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. So we're going to start at 9 o'clock every time. Now, there may not be some people in the room yet. There may be some people late, which is hard to believe that real estate people would be late. But now, virtually to a buyer or seller is the most important part of the business today. And we're talking about May 2020. We're not talking about 2018. We're not talking about December 2020. We're not talking about February 2021. Today, the ability to present virtually, like we're doing right here, is one of the most important parts of the business. This business is all about virtual presentations and doing them on a regular basis. And then I wrote, do not believe anybody that tells you that prospecting daily to get presentations is not critical. Do not believe anybody that tells you that strong lead follow-up is not critical. And that going on a lot of appointments, which creates transactions, is not critical. Do not believe those people. I wish I could pound on my desk, but if I hit this little thing I'm working from, it'll collapse. That's how strongly I feel about this. Do not believe them under any circumstance. If we do not do these three things well, we will never have a consistent, productive business. This is the reality of real estate. Where we used to say the reality of real estate is face-to-face, belly-to-belly. Today, the reality of real estate is the virtual presentation. So now your role play and practice that you do each day, instead of on the phone talking to somebody across town that's a buddy of yours that you practice your presentation with, you're going to do it on your iPad and do a virtual presentation. But the problem with the virtual presentation is it's up front, close, and personal. And everything shows. I'm sitting in front of you. If I was doing a superstar retreat right now, a production retreat, I got a professional makeup artist behind the screen. And boy, they cake a lot of junk on my head to make me look like I'm a little bit better than I am. See here, my 9 chins all show, my wrinkles show up, my gray hair pops right up. Wow. I don't think I like this stuff, this virtual stuff. This is scary. Well, guess what? It's also called reality. Okay? So our job today is to make virtual listing presentations, do virtual showings. And we're going to talk about how those work a little bit later, but this is the job we have today. So I wrote, and I want you to listen. If our objective is to go on more virtual appointments, we need to understand this long list that we're going to go through now. So I'm going to look at my producer and director, and I'm going to say to Miss Sabrina, how much time do we have in this segment before we take our break? 10 minutes. Okay, good. Now, I don't know about you folks, but this time is going by quick. Okay, so we're just almost halfway through our first day together, which is basically 4 hours. So let's make a list of the things we have to do to have more virtual appointments. We have to understand, accept, use blind faith, exercise these thoughts. So here's letter A. We have to understand. Please write it that way. We have to understand. The only way, we have to understand the only way to get paid commission checks in this business. We have to understand the only way to get paid commission checks in this business is to go on virtual appointments all the time. The only way to get paid in this business is to understand that we have to go on virtual appointments all the time. So now, instead of going to the house to make a listing presentation, we're going to be doing it through this type of Zoom or whatever technology you choose to use. So think about this. I've got a showing Saturday morning. I'm going to make a virtual pre-qualifying of the buyer. I'm going to ask all the buyer the pre-qualifying questions. I'm going to have my lender do a virtual pre-qualifying to make sure that buyer can afford to buy the properties they want to buy. I'm going to say to my buyer, if you'll turn on your iPad at this time, I've got mine on, I'll be showing you 4 or 5 homes that look like the ones you want to own. And in today's society, almost all of the listing agents have a good virtual presentation for us. We're going to look at 4 or 5, and then we'll narrow that down to maybe 1 or 2 that seem to be best. We're going to look at them again. Each one will take us 5 or 6 minutes. Think about the time saving for you and your buyer. And then if you have one that you think really pops up and looks like the right house, then we'll call and set an appointment, and I'll tell you how the appointment works in a minute. Unless we're doing that, it's pretty hard, if ever, to get paid. So I'm going to say to my wife, Sabrina, if you could hand me a sip of water for just a minute, and she's going to pop into the edge of the screen, thank you. Here's to all of us. I was hoping for vodka, but I guess it's water. And I'll hand that back if I may. So the virtual presentation, that's how we get paid. Second thing I want you to write down. If I'm not willing to commit and learn, if I'm not willing to commit and learn how to make a strong virtual canned presentation, if I'm not willing to commit and learn how to make a strong virtual canned presentation, I will have minimum chances of getting a contract signed. Boy, this second thought is critical. If I'm not willing to commit and learn how to make a strong canned virtual presentation, I got to learn how to make a presentation virtually versus in the house. It's easier in the house because you have the house. Here, it's just you and I and the buyer, you and I and the seller. If I'm not willing to learn how to make a strong canned virtual presentation, I will have a minimum chance of getting a contract signed. So let's write this question. Okay, let's be honest. Write down, what is my hang up about using a canned presentation? What is my hang up on using a canned presentation? Almost every real estate agent that comes new to the business that has no prior sales experience just has a list of hangups. Well, Mike, it's not the words that I like. It's not the words that I use. It's not my style. You know, you don't understand my buyers. You don't understand my sellers. You don't understand my market. Folks, do you want a doctor to perform surgery with that kind of behavior? A surgery is a canned presentation. Do you want a pilot flying a plane with that type of behavior pattern? Flying a plane is a very specific canned presentation. Do you want the attorney representing you in court to just say whatever comes on to their mind at the time? Those things are scripted out in details. That's why the attorneys win or lose cases based upon their ability to present. All the best agents that we've worked with in North America, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands today, understand the importance of a strong canned virtual presentation. Practice, 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 practice. And when you're done, practice, practice, practice. And when you get done, practice, practice, and practice. Third thought, then I think we're probably pretty close to our break. Okay? I want you to write, we have to do everything possible. We have to do everything possible to remove all the fears we have about doing a virtual presentation. You have an obligation. You're a professional real estate agent. You know, you've went through the process. You've been in the business maybe for a long time. You've done a handful of deals or a lot of deals, and you're trying to improve and upgrade. Congratulations. Now we got to do everything possible to remove any fears we have about doing a virtual presentation. Because that's our business today, the virtual presentation. So what are the fears? Well, I'm afraid I might make a mistake. I might look silly, and what if I forget what to say? And gosh, what if I forget their name? You know, you've all been in a car with a buyer, and for just that moment, you forget the buyer's name. Isn't that a fun thought? You know, you're driving along, and all of a sudden you can't look over to see the wife in the front seat because you can't remember her name. So you call them folks. Boy, that really ties them right into you, doesn't it? You're going to go through some growth stages in making your presentations. You're going to go through some growth stages in learning how to do an appointment at a high level and professionally. It's okay, it's part of the process. And then the fourth point I want you to write down, how many appointments would you like to go on per month? How many appointments would you like to go on per month? Now give that some thought. Okay, listing appointments, okay, showing appointments. Now, you know, and we'll talk about this more later, the money in real estate is the listing appointment. I mean, I think we're all pretty cognizant of that, okay? Do you want to have 2 appointments a month? Do you want to have 4? Do you want to have 6? How many appointments would you like to go on per month? And do you have a specific plan in place to make that happen? So a business plan. In your business plan, you have a numbers piece of paper, one sheet. I need to make X number of contacts per hour. I need to make X number of contacts per hour to generate X number of leads. I need X number of leads to get X number of appointments. I need X number of appointments to get X number of contracts. So how many numbers of appointments do you need to have? So if you think about that, those first 4 thoughts are very basic and fundamental to the appointment process. So my producer director just gave me the signal that it's time for another short break. So let's all, if you have to run to the restroom, now's the time. If you have to shake your hand because you're writing too much, if you have to check your messages because you've been getting some beeps on your phone, don't start answering your emails. But if you want to send me an email with a question virtually, thank you for being part of it. Okay, we left off on a question, how many appointments would you like to go on per month? Have you given that some thought? Did you by chance at the break make a note of how many appointments? Do you want to have 2, 3, 4? Some, do you want to have more? Okay, what kind of a plan do you have in effect? Or do you have a plan in effect? Or should you be setting a plan to make that happen? So the next few points really become vitally important to the whole process of setting appointments. So let's write down the next point, please. Very important, okay? Setting 1 to 3 appointments per week. Setting 1 to 3 appointments per week is 90% mindset. Whew, think about that. 90% mindset. Now think about that for just a minute. It's more what goes on here than picking up the phone and doing this. Because mentally you have to be tough to be a good prospector, and you've already seen that our industry talks against prospecting every day. Mike Ferry is the villain because he talks about prospecting. I'd like to make a suggestion or a question. How do you plan on getting 1 to 3 appointments a week if you don't talk to people? So watch, setting 1 to 3 appointments per week is 90% mindset, comma, who I call, and 5% skills. 5% who I call and 5% skills. So therefore, the biggest part of the whole process of getting appointments and prospecting is the mindset you have towards what you do, what you have to offer, the service you have, your ability to present in a fashion that makes sense to a seller and to a buyer. So listen carefully. Setting 1 to 3 appointments per week, 90% mindset, 5% who I call, and 5% the skills that I have. Comma. Now don't write this down, just listen. However, if my skills are poor, I will be mentally defeated before I start. You call it for sale by owner. You drove by, you saw a sign, you didn't have the courage to stop, you wrote down the phone number, I'm going to call them later, you get to the office, you dial the number, the lady or man answers, hello, hi, I'm Bob, and I'm a local realtor, and I saw your sign, and you know, I don't know if you've had much activity, and you know, I don't know how you're doing, and I don't really know much of anything. In fact, I can't remember my name and who I work for, and I don't even know why I'm calling you. Can't do that. Watch, you mentally have to say to yourself, that for sale by owner has a problem. They don't have a great real estate agent named Mike Ferry to help them. Therefore, I need to stop the car, or I need to call, and I have my for sale by owner script that I'm going to take them through one question at a time, and I'm going to do my job because it's 90% mindset. It's a tough one. The next point on our list, and I want you to write, please. We need to create, okay, we need to create a personal / office. We need to create a personal / office environment. And we can all do this, okay? You know, the majority of us are all working out of our homes because of this pandemic, and we're hoping that ends soon. And in some states, as you know, it is ending sooner than others. We need to create a personal/office environment where prospecting, write this down, where prospecting and going on appointments is our purpose. Where prospecting and going on appointments is our purpose. Because it's the only way we get paid. We agreed it's the only way we get paid. The first point, understand the only way to get paid in this business is to go on appointments all the time. So I have to make sure the environment that I have to work in. You know, I look at so many of the great brokers that we get to work with. We have, I don't know, 350, 400 brokers around North America that we work very closely with. And what's so interesting is the environments they set up in the office to create a place for agents to come in and prospect and do their job. Not all the agents in the office do it, but they don't need all the agents to do it. Well, what's interesting is the agents that are listing and selling property are the ones that are doing the prospecting, whether it be from their home or from their office. Don't write this down, but this should be your mantra. We are in the appointment business. Wow. Mike, isn't there anything else you need to tell us? Yeah, we're in the appointment business. Well, what else? We're in the appointment business. That is the business. A doctor has to have appointments to run their practice. An attorney has to have appointments to run their practice. A chiropractor has to have appointments to run their practice. A dentist has to have appointments to run their practice. Many people, like in the insurance business, the stockbrokers business, they have to have appointments to run their practice. You and I need appointments to run our practice. We are in the appointment business. And if I was doing this live with you, I would say on the count of 3, everybody yell out loud, we're in the appointment business. Do it 5 times. We're in the appointment business, the appointment business, the appointment business. That's our business. We're in the appointment business. Next to my list, to get more appointments. Because you're a good agent, you figured out that you have to be in front of people, whether it be virtually or live, to get more appointments. Keep your hottest leads with you at all times. To get more appointments, keep your hottest leads with you at all times. I can't stress that enough to you, okay? And whether you use a 3x5 card or a computer, or you have a book, you know, or you have an accordion file with leads in it, whatever you do is okay, but you've got to make sure you have access to your best leads all the time. And then, here's the hard part. You got to call them 2 or 3 times a day. So let's write this down. You got to call them 2 or 3 times a day to get the appointments that you want to get. Well, Mike, why would you call them so often? Because you're trying to get an appointment. Because see, the one thing we do know, if you can get an appointment, all of a sudden you're committed. Now you have to do something productive. You got to do something that's important, okay? All right, so then I wrote down next. To get more appointments, because that's our job. So let's write, to get more appointments, become fanatical. To get more appointments, become fanatical about the prospecting that you do. You know, if you think about it for just a minute, you would never set a listing appointment and then not show up. You would never set a showing appointment with a buyer that's qualified and motivated to buy and then have you not show up. You would never do that. Well, how do you get those appointments? Through prospecting. And prospecting is an appointment that you have. So you got to show up physically, mentally, and emotionally to do your job. So I want more appointments. Good. Then recommit and become fanatical about the prospecting that you do. And then the next point on our list, if you have leads, you know, just write it simply, if you have leads, comma, and we're not aggressively following up. If we have leads and we're not aggressively following up, And we're going to talk more about lead follow-up and being a little more aggressive. So relax and enjoy the experience thinking about it. Because some of you are saying it's not my style. I get so tired. 45 years listening to hundreds of thousands of people say it's not my style. So what style do you have? Not listing and not selling property, not doing deals, not making money? It's not a style, that's a pathetic state, okay? If you have leads and you're not following up for appointments, I wrote down, you're simply not doing your job. You're simply not doing your job. And I don't think that's, you don't want to be known as a person in real estate that simply doesn't do their job. That's not who you are. That's not what you stand for. I mean, that you're a professional real estate salesperson representing a good company. You have good service to offer. You're very meaningful in your purpose. You're doing something really good for the community by listing or selling a home. And the last point, and I don't want you to write it down, I want you just to listen, okay? The last point, if we're not going on appointments on a regular basis, we're technically out of the sales business and should be looking for the cause of the problem or looking for a different type of work. Ooh, wow. I can't believe Mike told me that I probably need to go find a job. Well, you know, your productivity is really going to tell us whether you need to find a job or not. I mean, I'm told this stat, I hear this all the time, 2019, 1.25 or 1.3 million agents in the US, not counting our Canadian friends. I mean, watch, 50% didn't do a deal for the entire year. Now, help me out. How do you work in real estate full-time? You put in 30, 40, 50 hours a week. You do it 45, 46, 48 hours a week and never do a deal? What is your commitment to non-productivity? I mean, if you decide, I'm going to do whatever it takes not to do a deal, I mean, for goodness sakes, it doesn't even make sense. So if we're not going on appointments on a regular basis, we're not technically out of the business because we are out of the business. And we have to look for the cause of the problem, or we have to consider another type of work. So, you know, this is not an easy game. But the payoff is really big if you get good at it. So I'm going to ask my lovely producer if she would hand me a Kleenex, please, if possible, because I am going to sneeze in a minute. And of course, sneezing is not what I like to do when I'm doing these virtual presentations. So thank you, sweetheart, and excuse me while I see if I can stop the sneeze. And then, of course, I got an itchy eye on top of it, so they all happen at one time. Okay, so let's continue. So now we're going to go to probably the hardest part of what we do, and that is spending considerable time talking about this wonderful thing that we hate the most, the P word, which is prospecting. I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago, I finally committed to all of our customers and clients and audiences that I would stop talking about prospecting. And a lot of them said, there's no way that you can ever stop talking about prospecting. I said, no, I'm committed. Time out. I'm not going to talk about prospecting. And we all went, well, okay. I'm going to talk about lead generation. Doesn't that have a nice ring to it? Lead generation. Oh, it's so much better than prospecting. Lead generation. Mike, what does that mean? It means we have substituted the words lead generation for prospecting is what it means. And then, of course, people said, oh, you just are trying to cover up for the fact that you want us to prospect. I said, okay, so now I'm not going to talk about lead generation. We're going to talk about having conversations with people. Isn't that nice? Because you have conversations with people all the time. I mean, think about this. You know, you go to the grocery store and you're pushing your cart along and you're getting ready to go to the checkout stand and somebody else is coming at the same time. And many times you'll nod and say, go ahead. And they say, well, thank you. And say, you're welcome. You just had a conversation. And then, of course, they're clear. And then you pull up and the clerk says, how are you today? And you say, I'm great. How are you? Good. I see you're really busy. They go, yes, we are. And then they check you out. And they'll go, is that cash or credit card? Oh, it's going to be on a credit card. Great. Can I get you a receipt? Yes, I can. And you're involved in conversations all the time, okay? We have a wonderful little Starbucks, virtually 100 feet from the front door of our condominium here in Las Vegas. It's on Flamingo. And because we've been here for, now in Las Vegas for almost 15 years, and, we go to that Starbucks almost every day, and we get 2 venti iced tea, lattes, or whatever they call them, venti latte, lovely conversations all day long, every day. So what is stopping you from having conversations about real estate? Are you embarrassed to be in real estate? Are you embarrassed for somebody to say, wow, I wonder if I could get my home sold? Are you embarrassed to have somebody say to you, gee, could you help me find this type of a home? I don't get it. We are in the business of conversations. So let's write now in capital letters a commitment to prospecting. A commitment to prospecting. Because that is the business we are in. We are in the business of prospecting. Now you can say, well, I don't like that. Tell somebody that cares. What, you're a salesperson. You got a real estate sales license. Okay, you went through the process, you got a sales license. You tell people, I'm a proud real estate salesperson. Well, then behave like one and make a commitment to prospecting. So I'm going to read to you 2 paragraphs. I want you just to listen. You don't have to write anything down. By the way, now's the time to shake your hand a little bit because you've been writing a lot for the last 2 hours and 15, 20 minutes. I wrote down once again, we need to understand that we are in the people, communication, and image business. We said that earlier today. By this I mean we have to deal with and overcome any fears and hang-ups we have about being involved with people that we do not know. I did a big convention for Century 21 in Orlando many years ago. There was, 6,000 or 8,000 people in the audience, and it was a great audience, and the wonderful host introduced me, and I walked out on the stage, and I looked out at this vast audience of people, and I started by saying, there are 2 types of people in the world today. Over here are the people we know. Over here are the people we don't know. With the internet. What's the biggest problem with social media? I said it allows us to judge people that we don't even know, never even seen, never had a conversation with. Because, I go to LinkedIn twice a day because that's a business-to-business thing, I think. And I have the 30,000 contacts like that. So, and then I see these men with their baseball hats on backwards and dressed like they just got out of bed. And I don't get it, okay? Watch. The world is judgmental and critical of people's appearance and approach. The higher the level of professional approach, the better the chances we have in succeeding at a high level. Since we're in the image business, how am I being perceived by the public? People still criticize me because I, in my seminars, wear a suit and tie. We're in a home studio today, so I took my suit coat off and set it over there in the chair, and I'll have another one on tomorrow when I do the second half of this for you. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Are you a professional? Can you imagine getting on an American Airlines flight from LA to New York and the captain standing at the door in a t-shirt? Would have the meeting room upstairs.
You're good on the image stuff, right?
And it was so interesting because our attendees, don't get mad at me.
We know that already.
And it happened to be held here in Las Vegas, which was convenient. And they had, I think, 150 of their top salespeople. Because, you don't take all these big... You don't care if I like you? I don't want you to take it personal, but I don't care because that's not what we're here for. This is not Facebook. It's not about how many likes we have. It's about how many appointments and transactions we can do. So almost every speaker, with the exception maybe of 1 or 2, are going to tell you you don't have to prospect. buy your leads off the internet, do Facebook advertising, and they're going to give you 50 things to do to avoid talking to people. But let me ask you a question. Let's say you buy 50, 100, 200 leads a month off the internet, trying to get them to call you. We were up in the Detroit area driving across the bridge to go to see Sabrina's parents. And I don't know, it was probably about an hour drive until we got to the border. And all we saw were these billboards, big billboards, one after another on the highway. From one real estate guy who claims, of course, he's a better coach and trainer than I am. And you know who you are if you're watching, and you probably are, because you're always looking for good material to present, and I'm furnishing it for you. So there you go. Always billboards. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I've been told this young man, who's a good sales guy, spends $500,000 to $1 million a year on marketing and advertising. Really? Can you afford to do that? Can 99% of the agents afford to spend all the money trying to get people to call them? Can you afford to spend $500, $750, $1,000, $2,000 a month buying leads off the internet? Can you afford to do a big branding campaign? You put your name and picture on you have a pretty select group of good showing agents, and that's pretty expensive because you have to pay them out a lot of money. B, aggressive prospecting techniques. Aggressive prospecting techniques. Now, you know from the name that I've put on the two lists, there's a difference, okay? But I want to share with you something that's very important. Both lists will bring you business. The amount will vary depending on which list you spend your time on. I will tell you for a fact that companies have ridiculed me. I've been banned from speaking to companies. There's still many companies today. If you mention the name Mike Ferry, we would never allow him to speak to our agents. And then when we dig in and find out why, it's because I asked him to prospect. I don't get it. I've never got it, never will get it, but that's called reality, okay? Well, Mike, my company is a social media company. What the hell does that mean? My company has protected geographic farms. What are you thinking about in 2020? A protected geographic farm, for goodness sakes? What you're doing is protecting the incompetence of the agents that work in your company, because all the competitors work in the farm, and the agents in your company that are good can't work in the farm because it's protected. Watch, slap me silly, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's our industry. The advantage of being independent contractors, we can do just about anything we choose. And even if it doesn't work for days, weeks, months at a time, that's how we do it, and that's it. Now, again, both lists, the obvious, very passive, and the very list of aggressive, both can bring you deals. But the catch is, can you make enough money if you're only doing the passive to last and build a long-term future? Because if you do the passive list and you can last for 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and you're doing that 3, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15 deals a year for 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and you build up enough of a database of past clients, you can make a living. Let's go back to the money exercise. Is the goal to make a living or to do something really good for yourself and your family? 10 years from now, do you want to be in the same house, driving the same car, taking the same little vacation, trying to have enough money to put your kids through school? I don't think that's what you want. So if you want to do something different, now's the time to look. So I'm going to give you a long list, okay, of passive prospecting techniques, and then we're going to take the break, okay? But I want you to listen. The passive prospecting I'm referring to leads to the fact that you'll get way less rejection. You'll get leads, but they're more distant in the future. They take less energy and time, and therefore a lower amount of business comes to you as a result. Okay? Here's some examples of passive prospecting. Let's write them down. I'm not being critical. The industry teaches them. Your company probably asks you to use them, and you're probably doing them. Just open your mind to the two types. So on this list, I've got, I think, 17 methods of passive prospecting. Number one, again, no word of importance. Number one, open houses. Let's write it down. Open houses. Okay, it's being done all the time. Number two, some companies still have you taking floor schedule. In essence, you are the receptionist for the office. Not paid well, but you're the receptionist. You have to answer the phone and deal with sign calls, ad calls, etc. Third, we mentioned it a minute ago, geographic farming. Still very popular today. I mean, some of my competitors are still saying geographic farming are the answer to all problems that you could ever have. I'm not sure about that. Number four, direct mail campaigns. Pretty expensive, but almost minimal rejection. I had a lady call me a couple of years ago out of nowhere. I did not know this lady. She called and said, I understand you do real estate coaching. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm very interested. I said, fine, how can I help you? Well, tell me what it costs. I said, well, we have two levels of coaching. One is $650 a month commitment for a year, and our premier is $1,000 a month. She goes, well, I can't afford that. I said, well, then I don't think we have a lot to talk about. And I asked, how long you been in the business? Well, all these years. And how many deals you do a year? I do 20 to 24. I thought, well, I knew the market she lived in. The average sales price is pretty high, probably making $10,000, $12,000 a deal. I said, well, I would assume you're making someplace in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $250,000 a year. That's correct. And I said, may I ask why you can't afford the coaching we have? Well, I've been doing 40,000 postcard mailings a month for years and years and years on end. I said, wow, do you get a lot of response? She goes, well, I will tell you this for a fact. My picture's on every mailing and everybody knows who I am. I said, wow, I guess they don't like your picture because you're only doing 20 deals a year from the postcard mailings. And what does that cost you? I'm spending $250,000 a year doing postcard mailings. I said, wait a minute. You're spending $250,000 to make $250,000. She goes, right. You're broke. She goes, you're right. I said, well, I don't think I can help. But everybody knows who I am. Well, it's very expensive, low rejection. I wrote down next, advertising campaigns, kind of old-fashioned, even advertising on Facebook, etc. is not really exactly what you call fashionable. Personal promotion. We don't do it much anymore. Those brochures, threefold brochures, big brochures, pictures of ourselves all over everything. One of the funniest things I ever had happen in the 80s and 90s when the big age of personal promotion is I got a phone call from a lady down in Phoenix, Arizona. And she said, I know you're speaking at the big convention next week. I'm speaking also. I'm kind of new. Would you mind having breakfast or lunch with me? I said, well, I'd be honored. Thank you. I said, how will I know who you are? I'll meet you at the front desk at 7 o'clock. We're going to speak at 9 o'clock. I said, great. So, I get up in the morning and I prepare myself. And I had asked her to send slower after the break. And I want you to make sure you've written down all 17 of these. And then I'm going to ask you to decide where your business comes from, because here's the catch. The most important thing in the first 3 hours of our action workshop is getting you to understand what I'm going to say next. You have to learn to source your business. Where did it come from? Okay, where did that listing you have come from? Where did that sale you have come from? And can you duplicate it? Because pretty often it's hard to duplicate some of these sources that we've just mentioned. So let's take a short break. We'll see you back here and we're going to continue our.
So Brendan, did you take a look at the email with where my sources came from?
Not yet, but I did see that it came in. So thank you for sending that in. But yeah, I'm going to check that out. And I was going to ask you, as soon as he said it again, did you get a
Yeah.
chance to do it? But I did see your email come through. I just haven't looked through it yet. Where did you see most of your business coming from?
A good chunk came from open houses.
Uh-huh.
So I love it how he's so against it, but it's like where most of my business came from.
Yeah, not against it. He's just showing that they call it a passive. That's the same thing. George and John would say the same as well. and just say that it's kind of like rolling the dice. But again, I feel the California market is different than most of the country, and it's not to make things different. There's just, there's a lot of potential here in California on open houses. So I think most agents who do business quite a bit around here understand how valuable open houses are. So just take it with a grain of salt. Again, this isn't about everything that he says as being it to the point. He's got most of it down pat, and that's why I listen to it, because it's the truth, right? This is the science of how to build a successful business. What I'm trying to do is write little notes. I'm taking all the notes, and then I have another sheet of paper on the left side that I flip back to and I'll write on. That's just specifically either for myself or towards coaching with you. And what I want us to do is come up with 2 or 3 things, like I said, that we're going to take from here that are sound ideas that we can implement into our business. It's not about trying to master all of this, but I do have a good idea of what we have to master to make sure that we build a nice, solid business that's consistent, and that we're spending our time in the right areas to guarantee that we have the right amount of business. And we're already taking steps towards that. So this is an awesome refresher. And that's why it's good. Even though I've heard it all multiple times for 3-4 years now, it's still great to hear it. And it kind of gets me refocused. So I'm hoping it's helpful for you.
And
too.
welcome back to the day 1 of our 2-day action workshop. I received 2 emails at that little short, I think we probably were break for 7, 8, 10 minutes. 2 emails that I think are important from some of you that are watching. And both said the same thing, which is, Mike, you covered those methods of prospecting quickly. I couldn't write them all down, and I apologize. I get excited about working with you, so sometimes I go a little too quick. And of course, if we were doing this again live, as I shared with you, it changes the whole perception. By the way, I've rolled my sleeves up because I'm trying to be a good citizen, and I wash my hands about 415 times a day, so I should have rolled my sleeves back down. So we're now seeing a real-life speaker rolling their sleeves down. Okay, let's go back. We're going to, again, look at the methods of prospecting that we would refer to as passive. And remember, the purpose of that is to show you that there is always a way to get business that many times you may not have thought of. However, there's ways to get more business if you want more than what you're presently doing. And those would be a little bit more aggressive, which we'll cover in a minute. So again, I want to read back to you. I said, with the passive prospecting, and this is what I want you to hone in on. I'm referring to the fact that you'll get less rejection. I mean, let's do it, be honest. If you're passing out pumpkins or flyers in your geographic farm, could you get rejected? Of course. Could somebody say, I don't want any pumpkins? Of course. I had a coaching client last week that said, Mike, please stop sending me all these positive emails. I get too many positive emails. I don't want any more. That was from a coaching client. Now we have a lot of coaching clients, and for one to respond that way, I went, okay. Well, so you could get rejected passing out pumpkins in a geographic farm. You could get rejected at an open house by asking for a name and number, which you should be doing. But you get way less rejection doing that than other things. So you'll get leads that are usually more distant into the future. You're going to get leads that are more buyer-directed than seller-directed. They do take a lot less energy, okay? They take a lot less time, and therefore they generally bring a lower amount of business. So let's, again, slowly go through and let's write down, because I'm going to ask you then, once we have completed the list, what I want you to do is look at the list, and which of those are you using? Or as I said before the break, if you really want to become a great agent, you have to know where your business comes from. So then I'm going to ask you to source for the last 6 months, all your listings and sales. How many came from these sources versus something else you're doing? So number 1 was the open house. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Open houses, if it's done properly from a marketing standpoint, can bring you a lot of buyers. Generally, not going to bring you a lot of sellers. It brings you nosy neighbors, but not a lot of sellers. Second, obviously, if your company offers floor time, floor schedule, whatever you call that, Some companies still require agents take a floor schedule. If you're going to do that, you got to be quick enough on your feet to know that when somebody's calling on an ad or a sign, that you're going for an appointment by getting a name and number. Third, the geographic farm. And I can remember way back, 1972, 73, going to Tommy Hopkins seminars, and because Tommy was a big, because she kept saying to me, like, if you run a full page ad, I know I can get 10 more speakers, because if I say you're in the book, they would want to get in. They may only take a quarter of a page, an eighth of a page, or a half a page, but I need you to do an ad. Okay, what's it going to cost me? She goes, well, I can give you the inside front cover. That's a pretty good position for an ad. I think it was 10,000. So I said, okay, I'll do it as a favor. I don't run ads. I don't think they work. And I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish. So I wrote the check and we put together a nice ad. The book went out to 60, 70,000 brokers. About a month later, I got a phone call from an agent. I think it was either Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. I don't recall which city. And the agent said, I saw your ad. And I thought, wow, I'm probably not going to get $10,000 from this agent calling, but at least I got a response, one response. And I said, well, what can I do for you? Listen to what the man said. I'm new to real estate. I don't have any money. Do you offer scholarships to help agents get started? And I said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And that was it. Well, the gal called me back, Leo type of bank business, because unfortunately, even with government intervention trying to stop the banks from repossessing a house, there's going to be some of those taking place. It's a tough business. And if you don't have the ability or skill to negotiate with the bank, it's a tough business. Next is adopting the client on the other side of the deal. 2 emails at the break, both said, repeat the list. I'm doing that for you. And one of them said, what was that thing about adopting? Okay. You have a listing, the listing sells. The buyer moves in, transaction's closed. I have always said, one of the things you can do to expand your database and your centers of influence inside of a community is once the transaction is closed, you call the person that bought the home on your listing and you say, as you know, I was the listing agent and I want to make sure that you're moved in, you're comfortable, you're safe. Is there any questions you have about the house that I might answer for you? They say, no, we're fine. Great. And then I wait 4 or 5 days. Any questions about the neighborhood? Any questions about where the church is, the school, the shopping is? No, we're okay. Great. Now, here's what's interesting. We know that the majority of people that sell a house to a buyer never speak to them again, because most people never call their past clients. Isn't that sad? They've invested their energy and time to do something with you, and you're not investing any energy or time to do something with them after the transaction's closed. I would make the third call, which I would do, and I would say, I'm sure your agent is filling you in on the neighborhood, correct? Well, we haven't heard from the agent. Would you like me to keep you updated as to what's going on in the agents there? Some don't do well, some leave. Why not walk, talk, contact the agents that leave? They've generally left the business. Would you like me to service your database? I'll pay you a referral fee if I do. Just a thought. Working small to medium home builders in your community, if that is an option. You know, if you go to downtown LA or downtown San Diego, you know, those buildings are huge. But in many rural communities, a small builder builds 2, 3, 5, 8 homes a year. They need a professional like you to help them. It's just an option as a potential prospect. Doing small public seminars, which are usually buyer-oriented seminars. I mean, they've been around forever. I mean, I think of our great client up in the Northwest, Gladys Blum, 30 years ago, with a lot of success doing small public buyer seminars. And then last, purchasing leads from the internet referral sites. And it is interesting how many of those are out there. And of course, For the months of March and April, those companies are getting beat up pretty bad, as you can imagine, because, you know, the excess money we would spend to buy leads, that excess money now has to stay within the family. So what I want you to do now is, after you finish today's first segment, or segment 4 of day 1, I should say, I want you to go back now and I want you to look at that list. Then I want you to take your list of transactions for the last 6, 8, 10, 12 months and see how many of your transactions came from that list. Really an important part of what I call sourcing your business. So now let's go a step further. I'll again read to you a paragraph, if I may. Almost every real estate training and coaching company will tell you that these are the primary methods of doing business today, those that I just listed. What's worse, there are entire seminars and coaching services that will tell you that you can do a tremendous amount of business using these techniques. And I guess what some people say a tremendous amount of business is, and what I say are 2 different numbers, okay? To a certain degree, they're correct. If you're going to wait 5 to 10 years to get maximum results by doing 5, 8, 10 transactions a year for years, you can build up a database which then is going to go from that list to the more aggressive lists. So let's take a look now and let's write down the words aggressive prospecting techniques. Aggressive prospecting techniques. Okay, let's change the tune. Okay, let's change the tune on the radio to see if there's something better for us to produce with and dance with than what we just said. So again, these will bring a higher level of rejection to you. So scripts are more important, but they will also bring you more production and more income. I mean, as I go through these, some of you will say, I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't do it, I wouldn't do it. And I understand you wouldn't do it because you won't take the time to learn the scripts. Now, if I haven't suggested so far that you go to MikeFerry.com and you press the scripts button, all the scripts that we have, and I mentioned this before because all of our competitors download them all the time, are there for you to use. So just a reminder, you should be going after we're done on day 1 and download 2 things. All the prospecting scripts, very important, and then download the pre-qualifying a seller list. I want you to have both of those lists for tomorrow. Okay, aggressive prospecting. Let's take a look at that list. Now, it's not as long as the passive. Isn't that interesting? The aggressive is not as long, but what's interesting is, you know, I've had the good fortune of coaching and training virtually tens of thousands of the best agents in the history of our business. If you look at the Hall of Fame of a lot of the different companies today, that Hall of Fame consists of Mike Ferry trained, coached, trained agents. They're using the aggressive list. Now, the aggressive list is going to take a little more scripting. It's going to take a little more patience, a little more practice. You're going to have to get comfortable being a higher level quality agent than maybe what you are today. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so let's start with contacting expired listings in most parts of North America today by phone versus in person because of the coronavirus. Okay, you're going to be contacting the expired listing. Let's write that one down first, by phone. We have a script for you. It's a expired listing script. If you can read, and if we were doing a seminar together, I would say to you, okay, by a show of hands, how many people can actually read? Everybody raises their hands and smiles. Well, then if you can read the script. You have to practice it so you're comfortable with that script. Remember, you don't want to sound like this. Almost every real estate training and coaching company will tell you that there are, there's a long line here. Now, primary, can't do that. You got to get comfortable reading the scripts. The expired script is vitally important because depending on whether the market goes this way, or this way, there's always going to be a growing and or shrinking number of expired listings. And somebody's always listing them. Number 2 is contacting for sale by owners by phone. And again, in some of the states in the nation, you can go out and talk to these people at their door. But quite honestly, until this coronavirus has passed us by, I think you're much better off, much smarter, and probably much a little safer on the phone. But again, we have a for sale by owner prospecting script. Now, would you guess that maybe these scripts are all questions? Shake your head, yes, go ahead. Because they're all questions. And they're all determining, they're all helping you determine, the motivation behind these two people. Because remember, the higher the motivation, the more likely they are to list. The lower the motivation, the more likely they are to remain at expired or remain a for sale by owner. Third on the list, contacting your centers of influence for both referrals and immediate business. In the webinars that I've been doing since March 15th, I talk about the fact that the center of influence is one of the calls you got to make, okay? And the reason you have to make that call is because the world is nervous, frightened, obviously very upset, and concerned about a lot of things going on in theirs and their family's life. Contacting your centers of influence, you are an information source. You're the calming force. You're the person bringing them positive news that is important to keep their heads on straight. So when this thing ends, and it will end, they bring any referrals to you versus somebody else. Obviously, next is contacting your past clients for both referrals and for immediate business. They have a relationship with you. Now, here's what I hear all the time. Mike, I haven't talked to some of these past clients in a long time. What do I say to them? Well, we have a script, okay? And the script goes like this, ring, 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 and the person says, hello, hi, it's Mike. I owe you an apology. And your past client goes, well, Mike, why do you owe me an apology? Because I haven't been in touch, I haven't been sharing, I haven't been talking, and I apologize. Would you like me to keep you updated as to what's going on in the real estate community? Well, yeah, we're wondering what happened to you. All right, so now that relationship is again back on fire and working for both parties. Just listed, just sold may be, in this particular time, one of the most important things you can do. Why? Because everybody's home. And everybody is either by themselves or with their spouse and their kids. And people are much more willing to answer their phone today than ever before. See, on February 28th, this was the enemy of most real estate people. Today, it's your greatest advocate. This is the one thing that is going to get you the business that you want, because people are willing to talk. Biggest challenge you have today is trying to get people off the phone once you get them started on the phone. Plus, the just sold shows that person you're talking to that you have activity, that you're active in the area, that your company has a presence. They want to work with people that have a knowledge, okay? Obviously, working your current clients for referrals. The highest level of trust that a person would ever have with a real estate person takes place right after they've signed either a contract to purchase or a contract to sell. That's when their trust levels at the highest. That's when you start asking for referrals. Who do you know that I can also help? It's there for the taking if you're willing to ask. Working old company files. Some of the brokers don't like it when I bring this up, and I don't understand that to save my life, okay? But I mean, if an agent has left the company or left the business, all I'm suggesting to the broker is turn those files over to good people like you, and you service those files to keep the relationship between the company and that person that bought or sell through the company alive. A lot of brokers fight me on this, and that's the choice that they choose to make, okay? Working sign calls. Listing agents should have the rights to get their own sign calls. That's going to be determined by the company policies you work in. But if you're getting sign calls for any reason outside the office, and somebody calls and says, I saw this sign on Banana Street, and could you give me information about that property? Script the first question you ask is, which home in that area do you own? Which home in the area do you own? And they go, well, I don't live in the area. We're from out of the area. Oh, so you're looking at purchasing a home. Is that correct? Or they say, well, we do own the home right down the street. Oh, are you considering selling and changing your house location? No, we were just curious. We're nosy neighbors. Fine. So simple question, which home in the area do you own? Tells you, is it a buyer or seller? Tells you, are they familiar or are they new to the area? Next is a tough one, but some of you can pull this off. Your staff, if you have assistant, a part-time assistant, etc., working your staff's center of influence list. And always considering the fact that if they do give you their list to work and you do generate transactions, to consider giving them some kind of a spiff or referral. What I call direct agent referrals, okay? Direct agent referrals. We have virtually, well, I was going to say dozens and dozens, hundreds and hundreds of agents that have been involved with the Mike Ferry organization for 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that at every event collect the cards and exchange cards with other agents. And then they have their database, past client centers of influence, and a second database, which is all the agents that they can refer transactions to around the US and Canada. A lot of agents make a lot, common thing. Mike, once again, I paid for my coaching for the next year off referral fees from that interesting little direct agent referral system I put in effect. Next is working what they call notices of default. It's a tough one. You got to be good, got to be strong. But boy, I tell you, if you work the notice of default and they respond in a passive manner, it's a good listing to have. All right, the next one is cold phone call campaigns. Now, I got to tell you, I've never understood this. The MO on Mike Ferry is he wants to cold call all day long. And you know, if I take the original cassette program I produced in 1975, one was how to list homes, one was how to sell homes. My hair was this big, okay? And I had an open collar shirt and a gold chain because I was cool at the time. Well, if you go back that long ago, 45 years, the cold calls were way down the list of the prospecting techniques as they are here. Cold call campaigns, they can be fun, they can be different. You're going to get a lot of rejection, even with the good scripts we offer. Now, the last thing on this list is the absentee owners, which again, the absentee owners in a lot of parts of North America are a continuous source of listings. So calling the absentee owners. So here's what I wrote as we summarize everything we've done so far today in terms of prospecting. The challenge we now face is to decide which techniques we're going to use and from which categories we're going to choose. Passive or more aggressive? Which category? We have to look carefully at the goals you've set, the amount of money you want to earn, your willingness to develop strong sales skills, and remember that all prospecting, and I want you to write these 3 thoughts down, all prospecting that you're going to do should lead to letter A, higher levels of productivity. If you're going to spend the time talking to people, you want good results. So letter A, your prospecting should lead to higher levels of productivity 60, 90, 120 days at the most. Some of those passive, 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 months out. B, be profitable, which means you're not spending all of your money trying to get a lead to get a potential buyer or seller. And then C, be predictable and duplicatable. Predictable and duplicatable. And of course, by that, I mean the activity, you should be able to predict what kind of response you're going to get. You should be able to predict the numbers that if I talk to X, I'll get Y. And then duplicatable, meaning that you can use the skill and technique over and over again, for example, with the buyer, expired, past client, etc. Okay? So we have covered a lot of information on day 1. And I'm excited about day 2 because we're going to go a lot into lead follow-up, the listing scripts. We're going to get involved in a little bit of time management, some good concepts on working with buyers. It's a pretty strong day 2. But I will say to you, first of all, in the crazy, trying times we're dealing with, thank you for being a person that wants to educate themselves on how to improve the quality of the service you give to buyers and sellers. And thank you for taking the time to learn how to do that job better yourself. Ideally, we would have 300 to 400 people on this particular virtual webinar series called the Action Workshop. And with this type of technique that we're using today, we can double our audience and we can get our message to more people. So I want to say thank you for participating. I want you to review your notes. Send me any emails, mike.ferry@mikeferry.com. I've got the afternoon off, so do you. Send me some emails. Let's correspond. Let's communicate. Let's see how I can help you as you move forward. And then, of course, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, we get to go to day 2 of the Action Workshop. Thanks for today. See you tomorrow.
Vulcan said.
That was great.
Yeah, it was good. I skipped through let me stop the recording real quick.